fiasco. The opposition had a lot to say on this matter. We're going to share with you a clip from our news stories, and then we'll continue our interview.
Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessa's 13-minute statement breaking her silence on the Section 34 controversy last evening has done little to appease the opposition.
This is no error. It is no inadvertence.
In fact, the opposition says that while the Prime Minister detailed how Justice Minister Herbert Volney lied to her and the Cabinet, she did not say why, when the lie was told, the Cabinet was actually discussing the early proclamation of Clause 34, contrary to promises given by the government in both the lower and upper houses of Parliament.
So as of now, the question as to why did you do that? We know you did it. We know you said that a minister lied. You know that you misled and apologized to whoever you apologized to. But the question still remains. Why did you do it?
Dr. Rowley says that the Prime Minister also did not tell the country that the full support the government received for the passage of the bill was based on the very promise that a clause would not be proclaimed early.
We specifically said to the government, speaking as independent members, 3 of us in the lower house, do not under any condition proclaim any part of this law until every I was dotted and every T was crossed. The government, having got the parliamentary approval, where the law is in place, the government turned its back on the Parliament.
In that regard, he says the Cabinet used the Parliament to achieve an objective, the result of which is that the preliminary inquiry into the airport corruption charges has now been stopped. On that grounds, he believes the head of Minister Volney isn't enough.
The government is guilty of facilitating criminal wrongdoing in Trinidad and Tobago. And on that basis, we are not going to stand and settle for Volney's head. We want every head of the Hydra.
Dr. Rowley also dismissed claims that the Attorney General, Anand Logan, was not part of the process, since the Prime Minister said he was out of the country from July 25th to August 4th, and that the Cabinet approved the legislation on August 9th and confirmed the minutes on August 16th. On that grounds, he says the opposition will no longer support any issue that the government brings and demands that the government takes the country back to the polls.
We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter. We will isolate them for as long as they're in office until they leave office. They do not deserve to be in office. They have betrayed the trust of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They are stained and they're shamed, and they must leave office. We are calling for elections now.
A number of dates are not clear, and Dr. Rowley and the opposition have asked a number of questions. They say the bill, the dead of night, Independence Day celebrations. Why the early proclamation of that element of this act?
First of all, let me tell you that I take full responsibility for everything pertaining to Section 34 and the bill, the act, the proclamation of the act. Full responsibility, because I was the Minister of Justice. I am the one who gave the undertaking to Parliament, and I am the one who had to ensure that the ducks were all lined up before the coming into effect of the new sufficiency hearing and the repeal of the preliminary inquiry. It is wrong and unfair to blame anyone. The problem that the problem in this so-called fiasco that has cost me my job is that persons do not want to accept when I say that I am the one who blue-flagged the process, who moved the process as I did. Now, I gave undertakings in the Parliament, yes. I gave no undertaking to the Parliament that the proclamation would take effect after all the ducks, etc.
So what Dr. Rowley is saying in that clip is not correct?
I do not accept what he's saying. What I said is that my undertaking, what I maintain, is my undertaking to the Parliament was that the new system to be brought in by proclamation would not take effect until the dots, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and the ducks are lined up. And in order to achieve that undertaking, in order to grant the undertaking, it was necessary for the Ministry of Justice to have the Act energized to recognize the institution of the Office of Criminal Master.
What was the motive to have the early proclamation? That is the crux of the matter. Many say that, and the opposition still maintains. To this day, Senator Faris Al-Rawi stated the opposition has nothing to be blamed for. They went on the government's good word, and the government promised to do so and so, but chose one part of this entire piece of legislation to have early proclamation, and all within the cloak of the Independence Day celebration.
There was no early proclamation. There was a timely proclamation of the act. It was proclaimed in two parts after it was agreed by the Justice Sector Committee meeting, chaired by the Chief Justice, that the rollout date for the new scheme would be January the 2nd. In order to allow for parliamentary measures to take place, to follow, it was necessary, in my judgment, that was my call, to proclaim the act except for the actual rollout of the new system that the act provided for, which would have taken effect on January 2nd. The rest of the act took effect immediately, including Section 34. There was no red flag from the DPP that anything was in the way of an early proclamation. No red flag from government. I acted on my own in this regard. I made a judgment call. The Prime Minister felt it was a wrong judgment call, given what she acted upon in the unconfirmed minute of the Chief Justice. And I lost my job. But my losing my job is of no consequence, you know. I have moved forward. As to whether the country will benefit from my losing my job is a matter that will be seen in time to come. Because I note that nothing has come out of the Ministry of Justice since my departure. And right now the Ministry of Justice was supposed to have been fully maintaining the agenda that we had set in the last term of Parliament, the last session. The parole bill was supposed to have been debated at this time. The National Offender Management Service bill should have been before the House, as well as the prison rules of 2012. What has happened to all these matters?
Why do it on Independence Night, the night of the celebrations? Most people believe that it was an attempt to mislead, because we're clearing all of the issues up this morning.
It was done on August 31st because the law term was about to be open, so that, you know, it was important to start getting all the party stakeholders working assiduously from given that we only had 5 months before the start-up time. The Parliament had been in session by then, had reopened, and these matters, including the creation of positions of criminal masters, were supposed to have been before the Parliament already.
Were they all aware? Was the entire cabinet aware of that August 31st date?
Of course. It was in the minute. It was in the note. And let me point out to you that when the cabinet note was approved, and the Prime Minister, when she asked me if I had consulted, when she deliberately asked me that question, and I said yes, and she said I misled the cabinet subsequently on the date of my dismissal, I was of the view that she was referring to the consultation that took place on the July 24th Justice Sector Committee meeting, when I had consulted with the DPP and the Chief Justice and everyone else in relation to the date for the rollout. The proclamation is a ministerial function. There's no need to since when does the judiciary get involved in executive work?
Do you think this is all a personal attack on you? Was it all geared?
Well, I can tell you that ever since I became the Minister of Justice and courthouse construction was virtually taken away from the judiciary, the Chief Justice was not happy about it. When this bill came to Parliament, the DPP saw it as an affront to his authority, his autonomy. Because, you see, the bill sought to clip the exercise of his autonomy, which is total. The DPP is a power unto himself under the Constitution. And they were ganging up on me. I am telling you that.
In hindsight, do you think all of this would have been avoided? One, if instead of the August 31st, you do it this Tuesday morning, so no one can accuse the government of having ulterior motives?
A matter of days, numbers.
But you must think it's strange, Mr. Volney, that people would look at the mammoth celebrations that were taking place and a bill that is now a bill that many say has the possibility or did have the possibility to cripple the government was done on August 31st when the entire country was caught up in a celebratory mood.
But that's why we have cabinet. Nobody saw that. It was in writing. Nobody commented. Let's put it on the 5th of September. Let's put it on some other date. It didn't have to be August the 31st. It could have been any date. But I am not the cabinet. I'm a member of the cabinet. And even when it was approved when I was present, that is on the meeting of the 9th, I think, of August, I went overseas and the acting Minister of Justice, Ramadan, was there. And I am told at the time when I was still a minister that he raised certain objections to it, yet he allowed it to go through. So this is a man with no conviction. He could have saved the day for the ministry. He could have saved my job. He could have saved the country from the trauma of what happened if he had just maintained his position that this should not go through at this time. But he voted for it. When I say voted, he supported it in the end, and the minute was confirmed. I was not there.
We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we have a few minutes again with the former Minister of Justice live beyond the cabinet. Stay with us.